Okay, I am a professional occultist. I have helped people get rid of demons. I have cleaned houses of ghosts. I've been doing this 35 years. I've done over 1,200 exorcisms. Cleaned countless houses with sage. Got rid of ghosts. Exorcism's a bit different. I've done spells for people. I've done psychic readings for people. And it's getting worse. Humanity's getting worse. There is two idiot schools of thought. One, that if people stopped believing, this stuff would go away. It doesn't. It's almost like faith in some kind of higher power, no matter what that higher power is, protects the world. China, that has no religion officially anymore, had the sun go black. They're absolutely terrified of demons and spirits. Atheism doesn't protect. If atheism was real, and I'm going to make it religion here, if it was a real religion, if it actually had real power, well, you'd think the more widespread it was, the less people would believe in the supernatural, but that isn't true, is it? The places you get rid of religion, Cuba, Russia, North Vietnam, China, those are the places that have the most recorded demonic activity and spirits. It's almost like this stuff is real. But only an idiot is an atheist, of course. Yes, I'm sorry, an idiot. See, the problem with atheism, for the record, I'm what most would call a pagan. The problem with atheism is it was disproven almost 3,000 years ago. Plato's Forms is a wonderful debate and argument about atheism and about the belief in a higher power, not a particular religion, but the proof, logical proof, he states, that proves atheism is wrong. I mean, he doesn't go into details about what is behind the chasm. That wasn't the point. He goes through and explains with reason that atheism isn't real. And dissects it, cuts it to pieces. Plato's argument has never been successfully refuted. I would suggest someone really goes through his forms. I plan at some point perhaps to even create a good working structure on Wicca based on it. It's wonderful piece of work if you want to study just for the logic benefits of it. No one's ever debunked it. It's why all the great philosophers of Greece, some of the greatest minds in history, were non-atheists. You know, Stephen Hawking was an atheist. He was also horribly deformed and trapped in a wheelchair. Constant suffered in pain. So I understand why he was an atheist. It was called spite. But, as I said, the whole idea of forms destroys atheism. The very fact that wherever you have atheism, you have an upsizing of reported events. Kind of debunks atheism. I've had arguments with atheists, and when they're not being biased or lying, they usually are reduced to tears. I lost one of my best friends in the world because he decided to actually get into debate with me, and he was horrified. People that are atheists are cowards. They live in glass houses. They're scared of the glass breaking that belief structure that keeps them safe. The world isn't safe. The world is scary and it is horrible. And the real truth of things, which atheists keep throwing up as if as if truth, the horrible truth, somehow makes the idea of divinity less plausible. The argument, of course, is how could God allow bad things to happen? And my answer back is it doesn't care. It's fair. There are worms and maggots that eat up the eyes of babies. There are children dying for the lack of a rainstorm. One little rainstorm. Thousands of children would live. So what sort of God would do these things? And the answer is an uncaring, alien God. A pagan God. This is why the ancients looked at it this way. Instead, they would worship lesser emanations of the divine. And they would get results. They would beg them to intercede, to help them. They would go through deep investigations to figure out what those lesser deities were. At least try to contact them, to communicate to them. And they would beg those divine powers that they would give names to, that they would have visions of their stories, of their mythos. And they would beg them to intercede for them. And they would. Christianity renamed them demons because they didn't want anything competing with their imaginary God. And it is imaginary. The whole idea of a God named God was because the Romans didn't want anything manifesting in their temples anymore. Jew God. Abraham. Make God. Yeah, that's real. But it bears no resemblance to the Christian God. It's totally fabricated. It was deliberately fabricated by two pedophiles, St. Augustus and Constantine, because they didn't want any more supernatural events affecting the Roman Empire. They wanted to hunt down people who contacted or invoked those powers, and they wanted to wipe them out. These are actual records of that. That was the reason that the Abrahamic God gets renamed God instead of Jehovah or El. They didn't want any more supernatural activity. What's your name? God. It was basic teaching back then that if you didn't name a god, it didn't exist. Where's the idol? Oh, we don't have idols. The temple's empty. Well, isn't that... No. The Ten Commandments said no false idols. They had the Ark of the Covenant. They had the name that couldn't be pronounced. They had the... sacred of the sacred in the temple. They had the equivalent of an idol. They also had a staff that they would worship. But they get rid of the staff because the king was jealous of it. I won't go for all of it. I'm not trying to critique Judaism. I'm not even trying to critique religion. I'm not even critiquing, well, maybe a little bit, Christianity. No. I'm critiquing atheism. Because all it does is make the world a more horrible place. People become more and more monstrous, and the world becomes darker and more terrible if you don't believe in something. People are like, oh, you believe that if you're an atheist, you become a psychopath? No, I believe it helps. I believe it helps. I know of one psychopath who dedicated their whole lives to being good simply because they couldn't feel conscious. Because it helps. Religion helps. Doesn't matter what the religion is. I'm very fond of Shintoism myself. I am technically a Wiccan. Shintoism has a very deep truth to it. The world has a deep truth to it. We are parts of something greater. And when we turn our backs on that, we become a little more monstrous. I've done terrible things in my life with magic. I needed money. I did spells for people. I've also done great things. I've saved the lives of children. I killed a pedophile. Actually, well, some pedophiles with spells. I was paid. I also broke up a man and his wife because his jealous fiance paid me enough money. Love spells and breakup spells are bad business. Much better if she simply had me kill them. At the end of the day, magic doesn't care much. The whole threefold law shit you're taught is a lie. Gerald Gardner, back in the day, does his cone of power to start his new religion. He was indoctrinated by the clever folk, which, by the way, is what I technically would be. My mother was a clever folk, hereditary witch. Anyway, Gerald Gardner lies because suddenly everyone's believing in witchcraft suddenly, and they're terrified, and he's facing possible persecution of his new religion. So he goes and he butchers some of the phrases from the second vow, I believe it was, of the Golden Dawn. 7-fold harm shall fall upon you if you betray the great work. Great work's about eugenics, and let's not go there for now. But because the great work, the bringing man of God, gets sabotaged, then if the great work is good enough for 7-fold law, well, Gerald Gardner, who was the, don't get me wrong, what he did was fantastic. He brought witchcraft into the public in Europe. Sometimes I think he made a mistake. It might have been better to start over with Shintoism or something from Africa, Asia, China, India. But the fact of the matter was, Gerald Gardner revived most traditions today, and we owe him a huge debt for that. And I don't just mean the pagan community, the very spirituality of the world was improved by it. But pagan traditions are non-ethical. And that's something people don't understand. I don't mean they're unethical. I mean, it's apples and oranges. You believe in a god. Does it care about good and evil? No, it doesn't. Odin didn't give a shit if you were a kind man. Zeus did not care if you were a good man. Gods basically didn't give a shit about human beings unless they did a little dance. unless they got the gods' attention and asked for help, invoked them, called them, built a temple for them. If you didn't do that, it didn't care. The whole reason Christianity is so popular is a complete fabrication that God cares. In Judaism, God's like this terrible, abusive father. Terrible dad. Jews are one of the most brilliant people that brought literature and such inventiveness to the entire world. No, one of the few nationalities I do not contain. Sadly, Jewish people are a brilliant, brilliant race. And they have loved their God since the beginning of time, and he has treated them like shit. So, why do I bring them up a little bit? Well, because why their God hasn't served them, the religion has served them. The law, the religion, the Torah, it kept them together as a people. It made them powerful. When they lost everything, it kept them alive. Faith, belief, shielded them from all these harms. People ask me what good religion does. Well, take a look at it. Their faith kept them safe. Not as individuals. Individuals get the crap kicked out of them. First by Christians, and then Muslims, and then the abomination of the First World War, then the Second World War. Oh, no. Nazis weren't the first butchers to wipe that wondrous race out, or try to. Even Poland had a go at it once. And so did Ukraine more than once. Even Napoleon killed a bunch of Jews. But despite all these great conquerors wiping out the Jews, including Julius Caesar, you know what? They're still here. The religion did that. Drove them, it strengthened them, it kept them together. They could be from anywhere in the world, but religion kept them together and kept them strong. Now they have their country back. Wondrous, wondrous people. No, I'm not fond of their God, but I think them as a people are wonderful, and I am so grateful for all they have given our world. Literature, the very idea of a book. The Jews have contributed more to this world than any other race. So shove that up your goddamn anti-Semitic asses. We owe a lot to that people. And they owe it all to their religion, to the Torah. So when a people abandons their religion, they lose their culture, they lose their identity, they lose their nationalism, they lose their society, they cease to exist as a people. So what value does religion have? What value does atheism have? Everywhere atheism is really sat down, you have people running around screaming there's demons. It's almost like, bad supernatural shit happens when people lose belief. Because there are ancient spirits, ancient powers that were once worshipped as gods, and they have become incredibly bitter and angry that they're being forgotten. And when they're called by their new names, when they're giving an opportunity to be invited into this world, they come. And they do terrible things. Now, that's not to say all gods are evil, but they're all non-ethical. I have a beautiful little cat over here. She eats mice. She swallows flies, kills spiders slowly. She's not human. She doesn't understand it. That's how God is. It's not human. It doesn't understand. if you actually encounter an angel, run like hell. Won't help, but it'll feel good. Angels, demons, they actually change one from the other depending on which branch of Christianity is talking about the entity. There are countless spirits, and some of them have more than one name, and some of them have saved countless lives, and some of them do it because they're wonderful friends, and they're loving, and they're caring to their followers. But again, do you really think Zeus gives a shit about your 10 Commandments? That Odin would care about the weak? They're not human. I love my cats. I love looking at wolves and bears. But make no mistake in thinking they wouldn't eat me if I was dead, or maybe even helpless. Because they're not human. They don't think like humans. That being said, you can make bargains with spirits. You can call them. There's such a thing called cohabitation, where the god becomes part of you and you slowly dissolve away. Hades, that's one of the greatest roles, the goal of the worshipper, to be devoured by the god, to have your soul destroyed, so the god may inhabit you, to overshadow you, heartbeat by heartbeat, to take away every ounce of you and just leave himself. And what do people think about? It's terrific. It's their choice. Possession is the dream of voodoo. Many different religions view it many different ways. But the gods are not inherently evil. They're not inherently good. Demons are not inherently evil. They're not inherently good. They are amoral, like a cat. But some of them are more benevolent than others, and some of them are more angry than others, particularly ones that have been long abandoned. And sometimes calling them by their real names, their ancient names, snaps them back a little bit. Understand now. Everything has a spirit. Every object, every concept, every dream, every story, every substance in the universe, every breath we take has a spirit. And some spirits are more powerful than others, and they're related to different things, and they can manifest. And if it's related to a fundamental enough concept, it's a god. And that God exists outside the universe, exists manifesting through the universe, exists manifesting through your mind. So the God exists in your mind, it exists in the physical universe, it exists in the metaphysical universe, it exists outside the universe. It's an archetype. It is the very essence of the archetype. And in some ways, some people would argue they're not really sentient. What is sentience except organized information? If enough information is self-organized, it begins to self-organize. It's the nature of order. Things self-organize. It's what intelligence is. We have a world of the supernatural. And the more people deny it, the more it's allowed to intrude. The majority of my clients were atheists. It doesn't matter what you believe in. But if you don't believe in something, you leave a void and emptiness. And something will come and fill that void up. What's scarier? A human serial killer who at least is human? Or something that's never been human that's pissed off? Something that only understands it. So it doesn't matter if it's an angel or a demon. If you're dealing with a true unborn, a true elemental vacation of the universe, a divine being, whether it comes as a messenger or a agent of severity, at the end of the day, they are terrifying. We live in a world of magic, of thought constructs, of Sasquatch, which is, for the most part, a fairy, a spirit that comes from another realm that steps through to our world, a ghost. If you're talking about mysterious things in the woods, well, if you haven't noticed, all those things are becoming more and more seen, not less. All those creatures, all those mythologies are becoming more real in our world. And it's because people have left a hole. They've left a hole inside them. And that hole invites things in. I might do more of these. You might think I'm just a boring old fuck. I don't give a shit. Yeah, the world is screwed up.